everybody, and welcome back to the Steps to Soul podcast. Today, we're discussing the future of business brokerage and M&A and where the industry will be in the next 5 to 10 years with a special guest, Mr. George Wellmer from Tupelo. How you doing, George?
Great. Excited to be back.
Absolutely. Give everybody a little quick background on you if they haven't heard the podcast before, so they kind of know who you are and what y'all are doing.
Yeah, I'm the founder of Tupelo. We work with business brokers, providing them software solutions to really manage their operations from start to finish. We help them find deals, track deals, all their e-signatures, data rooms, and we even help them find buyers. And then when it comes time to help them get financing for those transactions, we can help with that too. So from start to finish, we're in the whole loop of the equation.
Full service tools right there. We love it. Absolutely. So obviously, we announced what the topic is today. The industry is changing rapidly. Technology, one thing, Tupelo's, that is from when I started 13 years ago and now has completely changed the game. Obviously, the age of the people in the industry, the age of the business owners is changing. The silver wave is happening, as they say. And, I see a lot of evolving buyer and seller expectations. And 10 years ago, I would never have said it looked like this. I wouldn't have predicted it. Maybe I was just naive and young. But in the last 5 years, I felt a massive shift in what's been going on. And today we want to talk about what we expect the next 5 to 10 years, even maybe 20 years will look like. Because let's be honest, technology, even the last year of AI, has completely changed how a lot of people are doing their work. And it's gonna trickle down to every asset of life. And there are a lot of brokers in our industry that are old and do it their way. And they're about to find out there's going to be a massive change in expectations because of that. And if you don't get on board, as I know you and I have talked many times, it's going to be a learning curve they may not survive. So biggest thing I kind of want to tease everybody. Go ahead, George. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with a lot of that. The industry is changing. It's not changing as fast as, let's say, other industries out there.
Yes.
Just because of the demographics of the people that are in the industry and really like the nature of the work. Like as a business broker, you can sell 1, 2, 3 businesses a year and make a good living. So trying to grow your practice might not be top of mind all the time.
No, it's not. And I think that's where a lot of brokers and I think have gotten lost in the fray of thinking it's not going to affect me. We're a very people to people business, right? And that's where people think AI can't get involved. But it's not that AI can't take your job away, I think. And I still have me and Chris debated this. I think this role will still be around a lot longer than others because of AI integration. But if you don't use AI to maximize your return, you're going to get left behind very quickly, especially when it comes to doing your work products, to analysis and recasting and document development, which we'll talk a little bit later. But used to take brokers 7, 8, 10, 20 hours a week should only take 2 to 3 hours now. And if you're not doing that, that broker who is younger and experienced now can lap you in work. And the question then becomes, how many listings can a broker really service now? I kind of want to start with that, as far as the state of the industry. Right now, you see a lot of firms, you have individual practices, and you kind of have like bigger firms. You really don't have a lot in the middle, right? From what I'm guessing you've seen the same thing as me. Those individual guys only have so many deals they can work at one time. Let's be honest, deals when they get growing can consume everything. So the average broker maybe can do 4 or 5 real deals at a time. At most, I think, at a real time, especially the bigger in size and scale you go up. But let me ask you this, George. I know we talk about all the tools Tupelo is integrated into our side of the work with, document production, forms, digital forms, everything being centralized through Tupelo to help us manage our time quickly as a CRM. How many listings do you think a broker in the future can realistically handle at one time? Like when actually get going, not just listed for sale, but let's say deals are going on. I think in the 20s, if not more, if things really start to kind of speed up as much as they are, which is a little scary to me to think.
Yeah, I see this shift going from like 1 to actually 10xing in the next 3-ish years. You'll see more brokers with 50 listings at a single point in time. We already see brokers that are using Tupelo that have 50 plus listings. And managing their operations. Now, this is kind of a hybrid here of technology and systems, I would say, of like having people in place. These might not be brokers. They could be virtual assistants. They could be back office to handle some of that legwork, which a lot of that legwork will probably be taken over by AI in the not too distant future. I'm not saying 3 years, but let's say like 10 years. But think of like calling to follow up for financial statements, things like that, rather than having the broker do that. Maybe there's triggers that happen in the system where an AI agent calls them to say, hey, can you upload these financial statements? So things like that. Because a lot of the legwork, you probably know this better than anyone else, is like, it's a lot of clerical stuff, trying to it's a race to get it to point A, and then an X, Y, and Z happens, and then it's a race to get it to the next point. And what you're racing to do is to get documentation, get answers to documentation as well.
You're right. It's clarification on clarification on communication on communication. And I think that's where a lot of brokers still feel like we're valuable. We have that skill set of managing expectations. And there is truth to that. Good deal makers understand when to push the right buttons, when and how to communicate and make sure things are understood to parties that often don't even understand what they're doing. And that's not a slap in the face in buyers or sellers, but there's a lot of, complicated parts of a deal when it comes to the financing structure, calculating different aspects, doing add backs. I see and agree with you 100% on the communication, like where Tupelo, y'all can help us directly request importing financials into the system. I would not be surprised if AI starts every quarter saying, hey, it's quarter 2, time to get those numbers to the broker, and then it automatically analyzes it into the SIM or brings it into the financial recast, updating it quarterly, where a broker used to have to sit there and pencil in the numbers. Now, there's still a place for us to go back and review and make sure, one, are these even correct P&Ls? Are the owners even inputting the information correctly? AI may not understand that. A human's eyes are still going to look at it and say, hey, why is your retained earnings keep going up every year? Are you entering this correctly? Is the ledger being data correctly inputted half the time, right? But I do see what you're, and
that's
agree
like
on
the
that.
spot on thing there of like technology and AI
versus human ability
is only as good as the input, right?
That's right.
Even if a broker's doing a valuation, right? If you're giving them faulty numbers to do their valuation on, like the valuation's not going to be accurate. Technology is going to cross the same problems, but we're already seeing like people use Tupelo for exactly what you just did. So we spread financial statements for them automatically. We carry it over to the SIM automatically for them too. Not like those add backs, because a lot of times how business owners store personal expenses in their financial statement is somewhat.
Tell me about it.
Somewhat, I don't know, say hidden, but it requires questioning.
Camouflaged at times.
Yeah, camouflaged. There we go.
Yeah, which is okay. I mean, a lot of people do it. I get it. Yours truly does it for our company. Now, I don't do anything illegal, but like if I can run it through my business, why not? But at the same time, there takes a human element to identify those and have the honest conversations about it. And that's the thing sometimes where I see these people saying, oh, I have AI valuation software and it gets it perfect. I'm like, well, we'll dive into that a little bit more. But there's a couple of things, like you said, that it's limited to what's inputted, but also right now we don't quite have the real deep diving ability AI to granularly understand and think for itself why are these charges doing what they're doing. But speaking of AI, let's talk about deal sourcing. I think that's where a lot of brokers are going to have to make a real wake-up call. There's a lot of ways to reach out to sellers. There's direct mail, there's networking, there's all classic cases, the cold calling systems. With AI now being able to do cold calling, that's just starting to creep in, I see, in our industry. I don't know if it's working yet. I think there will be a place where it gets really refined. But that amazes me. How are y'all? Where do you see on your end as far as AI outreach? Because once AI outreach gets to be effective, I don't know if anybody not using it's going to be here in 4 years if they don't adapt it in some capacity, right? Or is that, explain more. I'm a novice there. I need more education there myself.
Yeah. I mean, I think it all starts first with like obtaining the contact information.
And
right?
You're right. That's the hardest thing to find in our industry.
Yeah. So like if we look at how it's been done way back in the day, it was like a Rolodex, right? Where you would have to do a lot more legwork or yellow pages or things like that and store that information. And then like Zoom Info came in and it was $20,000 a year to get Zoom Info. I mean, a lot of $20,000 minimum probably.
It's a lot. It's a lot still, I can promise you.
Yeah. And like finding owners' data is a lot easier now than it's really ever been. So you see a lot of brokers are very protective about their data, their seller data, because it's taken them a long time to get this data and build up their database. If you're a new broker coming into the equation, or if you want to find out business owners' information, it's not that hard for you to get that information right now.
It's not. The key is just combing it and correcting it. And I think that's the hardest part people don't realize. Just because you buy a database does not mean it's correct. There's a lot good in there. But for example, I've talked to Zoom Info and they show me their list and I'm like, those 10 businesses are wrong because I sold them in my market. That's very old data. And they're like, no, it's brand new. I'm like, well, it's wrong. I don't care that you use AI to scrape the data on your end. I know for a fact it's wrong because we sold it. I had the closing documents in my office. Like, just because it's there doesn't mean it's always correct. And maybe talk about data entry, and that's where the human element still matters. But we talked about deal sourcing for sellers. Let's talk about deal sourcing for buyers of AI. I have a big gripe with some people doing that and how they're presenting information to people. We're not going to name names because I'm not going to be a bully. But buyers, if you're out there and paying a service to scrape biz buy sell for you to give you data, you are a fool. Okay? It is not hard to go to biz buy sell or any platform and sign up for their email newsletter. But if you're going to pay someone to scrape those sites for you, and sends you leads, you are lazy and should not be buying a business. I'm sorry. If you're going to change your career and let someone go source it for you, you've got an issue. You need to be in charge of that. Do not let AI dictate to you. Because honestly, we talked about data entry. You and I talked about biz buy sell having bad listings on the website. If you're letting AI scrape and send you these deals, you're going to get very convoluted and mixed results and really just burn yourself out going through. Even though AI is getting it for you, you're going to get burnt out going through the motions because you're starting with bad data to begin with. Am I wrong?
There's a lot of noise in the space right now. I feel
that's
for
the
buyers,
polite way
right?
to say it.
Yeah, I feel for buyers that come in and they want to buy a business.
I do too.
Because if they want to learn how to buy a business, like the people training them are not people generally who are selling businesses. It's not like there's brokers out there that have how to buy a business course out there. Their brokers are busy working with sellers. And if you look at up market, there's usually like a buy side team and a sell side team, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the small business and lower middle market, there's not really a buy side team.
Ever. There's not.
So like they're entering the ring by themselves with no experience. So how do you get that experience? And I think it's a long, bumpy road, and it takes a lot of talking to business brokers, people in the industry, lawyers, attorneys, things like that have experience in the space. And also speaking with business owners, maybe talking with a business owner who's recently sold their business. And all that takes a lot of work. So they're just like, they're playing catch up right when they want to buy the business. And again, like there's a lot of noise out there pointing them in the wrong direction.
And a lot of those services, like they claim, we're going to help you find these deals. What they're selling you is a course to make money. If the course was as easy as they say it was, why are they not buying those companies and making a fortune? Why are they telling you how to compete with them to source those same deals? And I would tell somebody who wants to use AI as a buyer to source, just be cautious. The best thing you can do if there's something you really want to do is get to know the broker in that market or who has the list and call them and just speak to them and be transparent. Nothing I hate more than getting a scraped email sent to me saying, I would love this. I'm like, you haven't even looked at the ad. Like, you don't even know the first thing about this deal yet. You're sending me an email asking me to stop what I'm doing and reach out to you. I'm still going to have the conversation, but you're limiting yourself as a good buyer. You're limiting your ability to get better deals. The best thing you can do is develop a relationship, get to understand the industry, understand financing if you need it, and understand realistically what's going to happen to get that deal there. And that these gurus out there is telling you all the nonsense you've been reading and fluffing you up probably isn't going to apply to deal you want to do. So if you've built your whole fabricated mindset on this is how I'm going to get a deal done, and then you get out in the real world, you're going to get beat up a little bit, and it's going to make you look ignorant to the process and really hold you back from acquiring what you want to acquire. It doesn't mean there aren't some good buyer education classes out there. I'm not saying they're all bad, but a lot of them, I think, do not properly prepare you to go to the market. They're selling you a service, not selling you the opportunity you need. If you want to find the right opportunities, you need to talk to brokers and be transparent. And I promise you, if you are, you'll get there a lot quicker and a lot more efficiently and probably get a better education for free. Let's be honest. You don't have to spend a bunch of money to get the same knowledge. We're willing to work with you because we want you to know what to do because it makes your transaction occur. So that's a great question.
I guess how, in your opinion, like if you were buying a business, like what would be your steps to acquire?
That's a great question. The first thing I would do is think about two things. One, how much liquid capital am I willing to spend? What is my risk tolerance? Like, am I willing to spend this much money and sign on to a note? Secondly, identify what skill sets do I have and where do they translate? The dream of I can go buy any business with SBA funding is not real. The SBA does like to have experience or certain criteria for certain industries. You never been to a restaurant? You're not going to buy a restaurant with the SBA, I can promise you. That vision is not real. And I would tell people, educate yourself on, know your risk tolerance, your background, and understand what realistically you can go acquire. That would mean I would then look online, see who's in your market, identify a broker to speak to, and ask them, like, how would I fund this if I want to do this deal? I don't have all cash. This is what I have liquid that I will spend. What is my range I can work with? And what do you have that fits that range in my criteria? And start having those conversations. Don't walk in and say, I want to see everything you got for sale on the shelf, like at Walmart, and I want to go browse, because they're going to shut you down. That approach does not work. Let me tell you, if that's how you're looking to buy a business, you're not ready. You need to identify, say, hey, look, I've got a background in, let's say, manufacturing. I love to be in manufacturing or some kind of industrial space where I can parlay my previous work experience. I've got $300,000 saved. I've done some SBA work. I know I can leverage up to $3 million with 10% down. My risk tolerance is $2 million. What fits in your criteria, or what do you think overlaps? You come to a broker and say those words, Boom. I know I got someone that has done their homework, is prepared, and that I can help shift and put in the right positions to find the right deal. And it may not be available today. Keep that in mind. Be patient and expect the unexpected with financials. If you don't understand it, ask questions. It's okay to ask. Don't act like you already have the answer or know it. I think that's the biggest thing. Buyers don't want to come across as, well, I don't know that. No, ask. I would much rather you ask and understand what you're doing, because if you're going to take that big a financial risk and you have the tolerance for it, you need to be transparent. I think too many buyers want to show me how smart they are and find, I found a problem on the P&L. I can't believe he did that. You know how many P&Ls I've seen where there's a problem on them? Every single one, just about. That does not make you special at all. Like that, respectfully, there's going to be speed bumps.
So like synthesizing that, it's like, first, like, have a budget, right?
You'd be surprised if you don't have a budget. I want anything I want anything over 200 cash flow. No, you don't. Is your wife letting you put down $300,000 of your money, right? Or your spouse, partner, whatever it is. Well, she doesn't know about it. Okay, have a budget, please.
Have a budget, and then like, why would like get excited about a few industries, right? Mm-hmm. I'm not saying like niche down like all the way.
Yeah, but
like,
just some generic areas
some sort
of
focus. Target, right?
Yeah,
exactly. And then the third thing is probably talk to people who are in the space, who have sold businesses before, who have bought businesses before. These could be brokers, these could be business owners, these could be buyers, and like what to expect. And I think that the last thing is like, while you're going through that process, having transparency, like you're talking about now to the broker, is pretty big. Like, hey, I'm not comfortable with X, Y, and Z. Can you help me get comfortable with this? That's a good place to start right there.
It is. And when we call we'll joke to people out there, don't be the cash flow chasers, the guys that send out mass emails wanting anything doing $400,000 to $500,000 cash flow, because you really don't. And what you're telling us is you have not narrowed down your search criteria that tells me you're ready to do something. And please, buyers out there, for automated, talk about the people selling the services, do not buy a landing page that looks like everyone else's landing page on a one-page piece of paper. I got 4 leads, which I showed George, of the same exact landing page with a different name on it. Same exact color scheme, font, size. You know how bad that makes you look? Just, if you're going to have a landing page, which you don't need, take some time, make it personal and be realistic. But don't just cookie cutter everybody else just because it looks good. The best buyers are the ones that call our office regularly, develop relationships with us, so when the time does come, we can call them. That doesn't mean we're cutting anybody else out. But as a broker and a seller wants to hear 2 things from a broker. This buyer is motivated, he's got capital, and then I guess a third as a teaser is, have you worked with him before? If all 3 align, that seller gets very comfortable very quickly with that buyer and wants to work with that buyer. When I tell that seller, this guy's never bought a business before, he's scared to make the transaction, whatever it may be, that puts the seller a little bit on edge. Like, is this guy actually going to be able to get through with the deal, right? And that's something you have to weigh as an owner. Do I want to proceed down a road with an exclusive LOI with this person for 5 months, only to have them back out because they got cold feet, or they didn't properly budget and then they couldn't do the funding properly because they misrepresented their finances? Don't be those guys. And that's where I think AI can help you, because you can go on ChatGPT and ask for who the great lenders are. ChatGPT can give you direct links to these lenders. If not, talk to people like myself or George. George's platform can get you in touch with the right people to give you the right information, and source different lenders like you do brokers. Find lenders, some charge 2.75 over prime, some are 2 over prime. Find what works for you and that makes sense.
No, definitely.
Let me ask you just, I think, George, go ahead. No, go ahead.
The other thing about like using AI from a buy side is talking to business owners in the industry. Like, when you're getting excited about these industries, like use technology to scrape together a list, right? Of who are the business owners in the industry. This could be, proprietary outreach, you could call it, right? But at the same time, like, you should want to be talking to them to learn about the industry, even if you're coming from the industry. Like, what's it like being an owner? Like, who are your suppliers? Like, what would put me off on a good step going into the, entrepreneurship and XYZ space? No, and you always end these conversations with, is there anyone else you think I should talk to? Right?
Brilliant question. Leave it open-ended. See what they tell you. You'd be surprised how many brokers would want to help you if you just use the right questions and come in not trying to act smarter than what's been going on. Because remember, we've done this, some of us, for myself, 13 years. We have buzzwords we hear that immediately tell us which direction the conversation is going to go. Approach it appropriately. Let me ask you this question, George. you deal with a lot of brokers. So obviously you get some interaction with sellers. Everybody talks about, the silver tsunami, the baby boomers retiring, leaving businesses. Do you think that's going to actually flood the market with inventory? Or because I'm questioning that a little bit, because I've been hearing that for 13 years. My father was a baby boomer. He's born 44. Hitler was goose stepping across Europe. Like, I talk to a lot of business owners like that. I don't see the silver tsunami as big as I think people have hyped it up to be. I think a lot of that has already been captured by private equity, direct acquisitions, a lot of family transition. Will there be a lot of businesses? Yes, but I think the notion that they're all, unoptimized and not prepared, I think is a little misleading. What are you seeing? Because I definitely see people coming to the market, but I don't think it was as big a wave as everybody thought it was going to be, unless maybe I'm just not seeing the same data.
Yeah, I don't think it's like a single point in time there's going to be like all this exodus, right? I think it's over a long period of time. Like, let's say the next 10 years, 10, 15 years, is there's going to be heightened M&A activity. I also think now like more people want to buy a business than they've ever had.
I would agree with that. Buyer numbers have shot up, right? Out the wazoo.
Right. And these buyers are talking to business owners, right? Like they're talking to business brokers and they're talking to business owners trying to acquire their businesses. So the good thing about that is it's planting the seed to a lot of these business owners at a scale that's really never been happened before.
Right.
Like, when are you going to sell your business? Are you interested in selling your business? What does succession look like? And what's kind of like happened too is like through entrepreneurship, oftentimes wealth is generated. So the families might have started off at like a certain income level, and then a business is started, and then they're at a higher income level. And these kids will go off to like college and they'll want to be, doctors, lawyers, attorneys, things like that. CPAs.
They don't want to work 70 hours a week in the field.
They don't want to be exactly like a plumber or, roofer or what have you. Or maybe the business doesn't have the appeal to them. So someone has to buy that business. And with brokers getting better at outreach to business owners, and then just the heightened level of buyer activity out there reaching out to business owners, the owners are more prepared, I think, than they've ever been to exit, or at least they're thinking about it now more than they ever have.
I think you hit the nail on the head. The education to owners and buyers has led to a more integrated communication network than what it was when I started. I joke, I remember when dial-up internet was the thing, not to date myself. But back in the day, it was hard to get in contact with business owners. There was very few actual direct access methods besides calling them or knocking on the door per se, right? Or a piece of letter through, like you said, going through the yellow pages, trying to find a mail list. Nowadays, you can just do a Google search or a Secretary of State search online, and you can find infinite lists out there of people. And I hope that the owners have realized that there is material out there to help them prepare. And I think the biggest thing is like you said, the buyer influx. Now, what I worry is the buyer influx is too young at times. There's too many entrepreneurs who are too young trying to jump too fast. And I don't want to discourage anybody from chasing your dreams. But if you're 30 years old, just because you got an MBA from Harvard or Wharton Business School or wherever, you may not be ready to make that jump yet. Just understand that. I would recommend to people out there, especially if you want to get better financing terms, go get some real world experience for a couple of years and then put that capital away, have a nest egg, have some experience working and managing people if you haven't done that before you go buy these institutional mainstream American businesses, lower middle market size businesses. Yes, you can outsource them, but man, you've got to know what you're getting yourself into. And I see too many young guys. Like, I had a guy email us the other day out of LSU, young kid, 21, wants to buy a $1,000 cash flow business. You are 21 years old. You have never had a job. Do you think that guy that's been working in this HVAC business for 30 years, who's a technician, is going to look at you and respect you? Be realistic. I think there's a lot more buyers coming in. I just hope that they're ready when they say they're ready. I do think one thing that I hope in the future will help our industry, talking about changes, is the SBA gets more advanced too. Because, we had the SBA change a lot of their rules on the SOP back in June. That is the single greatest accelerator of wealth in this country. You mentioned, entrepreneurship driving wealth for families. I talked to a lot of brokers in Canada, but we wish we had the SBA. It would save so many companies and really promote growth of our economy. I wonder how that will change. I think they've got to raise the ceiling to 10 million at some point on certain, if across the board or certain industries. And I think in our industry, that's going to be a big defining factor what brokers do too, because once you raise that floor, that ceiling, I think we're going to see even a more bigger explosion in acquisitions. Because right now you're getting a lot of $1 to $2 million EBITDA businesses that are still good fits for private investors, but they don't fit the SBA criteria because the multiples pushing them over the $5 million mark, or it's just too difficult. When that changes, that's when I could see maybe a bigger silver tsunami hit the market and buyers go crazy. Because now you can team up with two people, get $8 million loan, 10% down, $800,000, and buy a company doing $2 million, $3 million in EBITDA. That's incredible, right? I mean, that's life-changing growth and wealth.
Yeah, I mean, it's been at 5 million for a while. The cap has that. There's a lot of like movement in our space to try to push it up to, because I mean, just inflation, right? Businesses are worth now more than they were 5-10 years ago. So
you're exactly correct. And the private equity dip down into the lower middle market, like you talked about, that those multiples they were willing to pay because they had cash and grow these platforms really kind of dragged a lot of people up. And I think that's where the market, I think, will be let me actually, let's talk private equity a little bit. Where do you see that role in the next? I think that's the most talked about change in our industry. Before, when I first started, it had to be $1 million to $2 million EBITDA. Wouldn't even consider a business 13 years ago. I saw some during post-pandemic. We're down to 750 cash flow. The great roll up with the lower cheap financing occurred. Where do you see that playing a role down the road? Because private equity obviously does their own direct outreach to business owners, as do ourselves and other buyers. Where do you see that changing our industry? Because I feel like it's obviously not going anywhere. The question is, do you think all these firms are going to be here in 10 years? I have questions that some of the firms have overbought and overpaid, and there's going to be a sell-off problem in the next 5 years. The question is, who's going to buy it, and is it going to be sold for a return or a loss?
Yeah, I mean, I think first to understand just like the macro of the space, there's a lot more businesses that are worth businesses that are worth $5 million, right? Just how it works out there. So the vast majority of the businesses that are being bought and sold are not being acquired by private equity groups. Like, just laying the foundation there.
Yeah, you're right. But people hear private equity, but they don't realize the full scope of how this plays out.
Yeah, and then when buyers come to you and they ask for a business doing 500,000 in cash flow or 750,000 in cash flow, like those are the floor that you're going to be competing against some private equity groups that are going after those same businesses that are well funded. So it's tough. It's tough sailing for you,
especially when they can offer rollover equity and IPO packages, and you as a individual have to ask for seller financing in some component. And with the new standby rules, it's tough.
Right.
And these new backed subsidiaries are very aggressive. I was talking to a fund, they specialize in porta potties. And in just a few years, they've gone from $50 million in value to over $200 million in value. A $300 million backed fund. It's wild how quick when they get rolling, what they can do. And I don't know if private individuals really understand that either. But the way the lower middle market is growing and interest from both sides coming in, I'm very curious how that's going to play out and kind of level out over the next 5 years. Because especially with AI, like we talked about, sourcing used to be, man, you couldn't find those companies. Now you can find them. And I tell people, when you go to market now, we have one doing $3 million EBITDA. We had 350 leads come through Tupelo and synced into our system in 2 weeks. Even with AI, that's hard. That's overload for a broker. Like that's a lot of the process. Thankfully, your system helps us keep everything aligned. Back in the day, that would have been a nightmare with 3 assistants trying to keep all those phone calls together, right? Faxing and scanning back NDAs. And that's what we love Tupelo. All of a sudden, all our NDAs are synced in there. We're able to go back and follow up and flag these clients and help and kind of tag them what is appropriate. And I think that's something that brokers, if you're not using that, you have a very massive problem. You're going to be outproduced very quickly if you don't manage that, because there's no reason to ever lose a buyer contact ever again and forget someone like it was back in the day. There is zero reason to forget someone. And if you do, you're just being flat out lazy. Do you, as part of Tupelo, George, how many of maybe this isn't a question you can answer, but I have a curiosity. Do y'all track any data to find out how many people, as far as buyers are reached back out to from Tupelo, let's say broker to reach out, or there's a metric to measure that are converting to buying an actual business? Do y'all know that by chance? Or is that just too hard of a question to answer?
So how many inquiries to like a buyer makes till they acquire a business? Or?
Yes. Or even that. And also maybe like how many buyers can you track like outreach back and forth from Tupelo to when that buyer may actually like buy a business for like going through our system or going through like maybe through y'all's platform when y'all advertise businesses for sale, which is a great bonus to us. Like, do you know how many of those buyer inquiries that come through Tupelo's website proprietary? So if you're a buyer looking out there, We'll plug that in a second. Do you know if those leads have converted to deals? We'll get back to it because I want to highlight that. That's a great point I want to bring up.
Yeah, I mean, we track a lot of data. Like, there's a lot of things that come through the platform. I don't have like the metrics handy right now of like how many inquiries a buyer makes till they actually
I know that was on the spot. I apologize.
Acquire a business. But like even through our own platform, we had 3 different companies go under LOI the other day. So
awesome.
People are selling businesses out there, and I think like it really depends. If we went back, and looked at it, it really depends on the individual and how prepared they are when they come to market, like we were talking about.
I think you're 100%. That's 100% correct. It's amazing how many, like I tell, there's a value of buyer leads, and I tell my guys, don't get discouraged. But we know quickly when we see the quality of the buyer lead come through, what's the likelihood they'll get something done. And it's amazing how much more likely the buyer is if they follow a couple of things that we talked about early on. Their chance of actually getting the deal done is like probably 50 to 80% more likely, which is wild to think. But just having done it so long, that would be my own personal guess. I'm not saying I've got data backing it, but just having watched those leads come through, that is very, very true. But I want to talk about your platform a little bit because I want to encourage buyers out there who are listening to this and thinking, how do I interact with brokers? If you're looking to buy a business, there's a couple of websites out there, right? There's platforms that we put blind profiles on, BizBuySell, businessbroker.net, you name it. There's a couple of good ones out there.
Sunbelts, yeah.
Sunbelts, yeah, our own proprietary website. And Tupelo does too. Tupelo, what I would recommend about Tupelo if you're a buyer really looking at is unlike some of the other sites, and then Sunbelt excluded because it's broker operated, these are brokers directly posting from their own website to Tupelo. Tupelo is our CRM provider, helps sync our data. There's a much, much higher likelihood that listing on Tupelo is a legit business listing for sale that is active and ready to do something versus some of these other random third-party sites where people post startup franchises as operating businesses. We're not going to name names, but you know who you are out there, and I'm hunting you down. There's a bunch of other sites where the data just doesn't get collected properly. The brokers are paying to use Tupelo to make their lives simpler and be more efficient to get deals done. So that platform where Tupelo feeds the listings directly from, that is up to date as it's going to get from my broker. So if you're looking for good deals, that is all brokers sourced directly. It's not some random mom and pop who may put their ad on BizBuySell and completely misrepresent what it is. It's not some franchise broker posing as a startup franchise as a real business on BizBuySell or another platform. Tupelo is, I can't say 100% every single because I don't know, but I'm going to bet 99% are almost very active, very ready to go to market, and they're there for a reason. So if you're looking for somewhere to go look, that's a great place to start. Not to plug it, but it's true. I want buyers to find access and not get burnt out chasing down bad leads and bad opportunities on random sites. It's part of doing your homework.
I think
this is a great place to start.
Like opening up the hood a bit here so the buyers can see it. Brokers with other platforms, they'll buy like a package. They'll get an account and they'll buy a package of number of listings. So let's say that they can post 10 listings at any given time because they're on a monthly subscription for that. It behooves these brokers, there's some gray areas here, to have listings to use all 10 of those listings. So maybe some of these listings, exactly. So they might be under contract, or maybe they've potentially sold in the past, or maybe they don't exist, but they're trying to get one of the similar business under contract. So we see sometimes that that space gets filled, and then buyers
the
will
old
come
bait
through,
and switch.
Inquire upon some of these listings, and they might not be available at that time. So
and there are times, I'll be honest, when like we have a seller that goes rogue or a seller that kind of goes dark for a week or 2 or 3, and it's difficult to tell a buyer, hey, I'm sorry, but this owner is just being difficult. We still have to market it. We're contractually obligated to do so, but we have an active valid listing agreement. Unlike a lot of places where God knows what you're clicking on is even the same opportunity that you're going to get pitched when you call. It's going to be, oh, well, I heard you wanted a franchise. What do you mean? I didn't click on a franchise. Oh, actually, I've heard the song in Pony Dance. And that burns buyers out too. And that's why I tell buyers, please reach out to the right people. As our industry evolves, there's less and less reason for that to be occurring. And also, brokers are going to be able to help respond to you quicker. For example, a couple of years ago, I couldn't imagine an automated NDA system. The second you inquired, going through Tupelo, populating our NDA and getting it to you immediately. You're not waiting 2 or 3 days for someone to contact you to call, maybe do an NDA. You're going to get the NDA right away. You don't have to sign it right away. If you want to talk to us first, we're going to call you too pretty soon and talk about it. But you as a buyer are in the best position you've ever been for the speed of things to occur and and for steps that used to take weeks to get going can now be done in hours. And I hope that the industry and people realize that as it evolves. And I hope people also take a minute to step back and slow down. Because just because you can move faster doesn't mean you're moving efficiently. Doesn't mean you're doing the right steps. There's a method to the madness sometimes that you need deals to have time to settle in. Just because you can enter a deal room from signing an NDA does not mean you should get every ounce of financials and piece of data ever created on that business to review as a buyer. You still need to have conversations and find out, is this a fit? Take a small look at financials. Maybe look at the SIM first. You don't need a dissertation on that company having just signed an NDA and never had a single conversation about it, in my opinion. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think that's where there's going to be friction in the industry, George, because there's a lot of brokers out there that just automate everything and don't speak to people. I think that's not quite the right way to go about doing it. What are your thoughts?
Ooh.
I know, loaded question. We're here. We're tough questions today.
Yeah, I mean, there's two schools of thought here. Like you see some brokers who release a lot of information because the buyer signed an NDA, right? And then the buyer's thought is, hey, I've signed an NDA. I've proven to you that
I'm
legally,
serious.
Yeah, I've proven to you legally that I'm under, not going to share any data. So why do I have to jump through all these hoops? So like I get that pool, but I also understand as the broker, you can only show the buyer so much information on these various marketplaces. And it's virtually 1 year of cash flow, which what is cash flow right now? Is it SDE?
The great
is
debate,
it true
right?
Cash flow? Is it EBITDA? What have you? So buyers are confused there. I think brokers are a little bit misunderstood there too. And then 1 year like revenue. So there's a lot more information out there that you can like slowly release. I think like the best way is to have like little breadcrumbs through it. So when a buyer signs an NDA, they're sent something, maybe a little bit more information automatically. Maybe this is like 3 years of revenue, 3 years of cash flow, and a little bit more detail on the business. I am not saying this is disclosing information on the business, but a lot of times there's like, and the broker knows this too, like there's certain buzzwords that are yes or no for the buyer, certain metrics that are yes or no for the buyer. So like maybe it's how much residential service work is being done versus commercial service work, service versus new construction. Exactly. So you like tease them with all this stuff in the inquiry itself. And then the first release, I think, is a little bit more information. Again, I'm disclosing. And then that'll weed out buyers automatically. And then you have like your pool for a broker to, rather than call, 300 people like you referenced earlier, maybe that number is now like 75 people that you have to call. And it just makes the broker's legwork a lot easier.
No, I think you're right. I always joke, the first question is, I need all the P&Ls and tax returns. You haven't even found out if it even fits what you're looking for, especially when you mentioned, HVAC or services businesses like that. It's funny. I call and tell people this one has almost all commercial new construction. Oh, I don't want that. This is why we talk before we just blanket release. It's not, you already told me in your inquiry, you don't want that. So before we just get into a tussling match of how to figure this out, you're right. Little bits of information. And that's where, Tupelo is a great platform for us. You put it in the data room, you sync it for certain stages. There's no reason a broker should have to go manually load an email every single time to send something. That is a waste of time and asking for errors to occur. You're cutting back on your errors because now the email is synced into Tupelo and it goes right out. You don't have to go back in, retype in the email, set the email, do the format like you did, and have a virtual assistant or a secretary doing that. This is all automated. So you can really set a practice and set how your practice runs and set things consistently, whether it's one broker or 5 brokers. Like, hey, here's our company policy. Here's the stages to go through. And good buyers will understand that, as will sellers, as far as educating both sides how the transaction is going to start and organically grow, right? I worry with AI, that's going to be harder to maintain control. And I don't say control and like I have to have the power. I say control and making sure it doesn't go off the rails. Because now with such automation, you can, like you said, you can send so much so quick that maybe the buyer can't really process and understand what's really going on. Because I believe, at least our practice does, like you said, start with some small information, have conversation, develop a relationship and understanding of what this business is. No matter how good AI is in automation, if you don't really understand the business and the history and how it got there and what it's doing, I don't know if you're going to be ready to buy the business. If you're going to base it solely on buying, just looking at the P&Ls, you're never going to buy a business. And you shouldn't.
Yeah. I mean, I think like the thing that also to think about here is it's not only going to be the broker deploying AI, it will be the buyer deploying AI.
Correct.
So the broker's AI will be talking to the buyer's AI. And there's a lot to come in here with like AI agents and things like that. But
absolutely,
we're still in like the early days here of AI deployment, quite frankly.
We are. I see it in LinkedIn conversations all the time. You add somebody, hey, and it's like, here comes the pitch, and AI conversation start. And it's like, I don't know. I'm torn on that. I understand why it exists, but maybe I'm a little old school and I grew up in an old school manner. But for buyers out there, and I think in industry, that it's great if it helps you get started through the door. But just know if you're having 7 conversations with 7 different brokers, I don't know if you're ever going to be able to narrow down your field quickly. You just try to keep your sample size small so you really get a good look at what you're looking at, because every deal is going to have its issues. Let's be clear. Every P&L, every tax return, there's always something. So if AI is automatically hears this is a problem and it throws it out, you might miss out on the perfect opportunity because AI doesn't understand how to translate what the broker's telling them to, or even the broker's AI. There's a lot there, and that's why conversation is important. I think people need to remember that those conversations will greatly help you narrow down your list more than just an AI bot emailing the broker asking for these 5 criteria and please input. Like, there's an art to communication. And honestly, whether you realize it or not, you're going to have to talk to that seller. And if you hide behind a screen and you don't have those skills, it's going to be tough when it's time to have those real conversations with an owner or key employees. And you need to be able to still have that relationship-based discussion abilities. And I think that's where like Gen Z and the real young groups coming in are going to struggle with acquisitions because they hide behind their screens. I mean, we can talk about the Gen Z stare, but like, I don't know. What do you see that being an issue in the future? I don't know. I'm not curious. I'm just kind of wondering like how this is going to play out because the younger guys don't seem to get it. I think.
I mean, I think this goes back to buyers doing their due diligence and talking to business owners in that space. So when they do talk to an owner who's selling their business, they can speak the lingo that owner is used to hearing and ask, relevant questions, like, oh, what suppliers are you using to procure, X, Y, and Z? And you can give like an example. And if you talk to a few business owners in that industry, you're going to learn a heck of a lot more than just,
yes, you are,
reading about it online. So not everything's online. There's a lot of things online, but not everything's online.
Just because some guru wrote one article does not tell you that's not the perfect blueprint or It is the status quo. I would definitely agree with you on that. Before we wrap it up, let me get some takeaways from you. I know we got a hard cutoff time. I know you've been very gracious with your time. What are 1 or 2 things you would say, bold predictions you're willing to make right now for the next 5 to 10 years you see? Like, let's ask you 2 things. What is the biggest change you think is going to happen for sure? What is the one that you want to see happen? And then what's one that you're afraid is going to happen?
Okay. So I think like the biggest change we'll see for brokers is going from like 5 listings to 50 listings. I think good brokers are going to be selling a lot more listings in the near future. And it's not going to sacrifice the seller, like sacrifice your quality. No. So if I was selling a business, if a broker has the right systems in place and team in place, I'm not worried about that, quite frankly. And like you can always look at as a business owner, you can look at a broker's track record, like what businesses have you sold in the past. There's things that you can do. Exactly. And questions you can ask the broker too to see if it's a good fit for you.
Absolutely.
So I think that's going to be a pretty big shakeup in terms of like how technology will impact, let's say, the buy side we talked about. I think buyers will leverage AI a lot more in the future, probably quicker than brokers.
I agree.
And they'll use it to like analyze financial statements. They probably use it to like come up with questions to ask the broker and the team like that. And they'll also use it to probably source listings.
Yeah, I think you're right.
They'll do their own proprietary work, which we already see that all the time from buyers right now of reaching out to business owners directly. And that's through like lead sourcing mechanisms that they're doing. Yeah, I think those are like the 2 big predictions out there I would have that are like kind of happening right now. But I think we'll speed up. And then the thing that I wouldn't say I'm scared of happening, but I'm very confident it will happen is, and maybe it's not 2 years away, maybe it's further out. It's like the broker's AI talking to the buyer's AI.
That is my biggest fear. Is you're right. I don't know if that's going to really translate data properly back and forth, right? You're going to get lost in translation and miss out on good deals because of that. That's my biggest fear.
Yeah. And then the other thing that I think I would put more into the fear category is like AI can learn there's a lot of content that you and I produce online. So our voice is out there. So AI could virtually replicate you and I out there. And then we could be selling something that we don't even know about, quite frankly. So that's why I think like AI cold calling, like it can get really, really good. Right now, when an AI message is written, you have a decent idea, I think, especially if it was like poorly prompted. But in the not so distant future, particularly with text, I don't think anyone will know that it was written by AI.
I do agree with you on that. I've even had some outsourcing companies send me emails all the time, and I can tell like I can tell it's an AI generated like follow up or an AI generated like outreach because I've talked to him on the back end to know, but up front it would be difficult to decipher. Even as a younger man, I'm only just made 35 years old. I'm pretty technically sound. I could totally see how like a 50-year-old or 60-year-old, it would just go right over their head. They would have no clue. Even a younger person would still struggle sometimes to identify those deals. It's a brave new world we're entering. NVIDIA has changed the game, so we will all have to adjust. And that's why we had the podcast topic today. We've all made some predictions. We've made some outlines of things where we like, don't like, kind of hope work out. For all you out there listening, take it with a grain of salt. We are not predicting the future, but at the same time, if you're not optimizing and finding a way to use AI, you're going to get left behind. It doesn't mean it's going to change your entire life completely, but it will modify it. And, we're lucky that guys like George are on our team with Tupelo, making our lives easier. Because if I had to go individually source this out and figure this out, that would be taking way more time away from what I want to do, which is do deals. And that's what everybody has to focus on. What makes you do deals better? Don't sacrifice speed for efficiency. Just because AI can do something doesn't mean it's going to do it more efficient and better than you. Use it as a tool, not the end all be all. So that's my closing statement. Anything else, George, you'd like to add before we wrap it up, finalize?
I mean, try things out. I think that's like the big thing. Mm-hmm. Try things out, check your work. With all technology or even outsourcing work, quite frankly, you want to review your work. So, I mean, it's a cliche right there, but try things out and just double check it and see if it works for your practice and like what you're comfortable with. And if it does, lean into it. And if it doesn't, try something new.
You're right. So before we get off, tell everybody where they can find Tupelo just in case. I think we highlighted exactly how to contact you.
Yeah, you can reach out to me directly through email, george@tupelosmb.com, or go to tupelosmb.com and check out our website and reach out.
Thank you, George. I appreciate the insights. As always, you can find us on our website, sunbeltnetwork.com/BR, or 225-201 is the office line, and we are here and ready to help. George, it was great talking to you again. As always, thank you for your time. Thank you for your insights. And those out there listening, we will see you next time on the podcast.